This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 217, recorded on June 4th, 2015. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all your favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a stormy, thunderstorms rolling through tonight, stormy Bellevue, Nebraska. In fact, we were on Periscope earlier today in the pre-show, and we had some folks from the Omaha area join us on Periscope, so it was pretty cool. And, of course, we post the show with world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, of course you can contact us. Send us an email. Just send that to me, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. You can track me down on Twitter at jcollison, or now call in those questions, 402-478-8450. Give us a call, and as we have time, we'll respond to those questions on the show. Of course, the AverageGuy.tv is powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, and high-speed hosting from people that you know and trust. Of course, that's Christian, and he has a couple spots open. If you're looking at starting a website, this plans start at $10 a month. It's a great deal, and you get the great power of the big guys and all the service of the small guys out at Maple Grove Partners, maplegrovepartners.com. We want to thank Roger over at WLMN Radio for streaming us daily out there in Grafton, West Virginia. We're on, I think, like 10 or 11 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday, out terrestrial radio out in Grafton, West Virginia. Of course, Home Gadget Geeks is a part of the Geeks Network. Find the links to this show and many other great podcasts, and some good ones out there. If you're new to the show, you should check them out, thegeeksnetwork.com, and you can join us in chat, watch or listen live. We're available on YouTube, Spreaker, Mixler, Audio Boom, everything. You can get all our podcasts. We're everywhere. You can find us everywhere. But all those links are available out at theaverageguy.tv. All right, we have a home automation show for you tonight, and then anything else we want to talk about as we get done. And I did not know this when I booked this show, but the last time I had these two guys together, I guess we talked about home automation. So first I want to welcome Mike Weger back. Mike, welcome back, and glad to have you out.
Yeah, good to be back. Tonight's conversation is going to be a fun one, something we've been kind of throwing into the show a little bit each week, and so now we're going to have a whole show on it. Pretty excited.
Very cool. And then, of course, we want to welcome back, and I think we were trying to figure out, I think it was fall last time he was on the show, but John Greenaway. John, welcome, and thanks for coming back.
Hey, Jim, Mike. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. I looked it up. I was here November 15th was the last time we were all together, so about every 6 months.
Yeah, we were pretty close, and that's not bad. 6 months, like things change in 6 months. If you do 2 or 3 months, not a lot changes, but 6 months is a good time. So you're in the middle of winter there in San Francisco, and so you got to head down to San Jose to get any nicer weather during the summer. But you're suffering in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, well, I work in here in San Francisco, but I live out in the Walnut Creek area. So I go out home, and it'll be middle of summer. So.
And it's crazy how fast that changes over from San Francisco to Walnut Creek. And if you take the BART train out there, you go down underneath the bay, you come back up in Berkeley, and it's still kind of a little foggy. You shoot through the mountain, you come back out, sunny, like it's a whole different country, right? Yep. It's brown, and I was always amazed in that route there, that Walnut Creek would just be hot and dry, and San Francisco would be foggy and wet.
That's exactly the way it is, and if you don't live around here or aren't from around here, people don't understand that, so it's kind of funny.
No, it's two completely different, ecosystems that you have there. Well, welcome. We're glad that you could join us back in. We're going to dive right in. John, the last time we had you on, we talked a little bit about home automation. In fact, you reminded me that it was Mike who kind of turned you on to this Ecobee thermostat of sort, and I don't know how we want to go through this, but let's talk about maybe let's start us with the last 6 months since we had you on. You've kind of joined us in the home automation journey. What have you put in? Just kind of give us your story.
Yeah, so I remember we were closing that show talking about things that were on the radar but not necessarily a priority for me. I had done a few small things. And first of all, by no means am I a home automation expert. I'm listening to the podcasts and dabbling, I would say, just like most of us probably are. But I did happen to buy a new house last August, I bought a house last August and started wanting to do some things for safety, convenience, and saving some money. And at the end of that podcast, we were talking about thermostats, and I said, I really want to I'm interested in the Nest, but it didn't quite get me. I wanted the ability to have remote sensors. And literally, if I looked at that date, November 15th, I think the Ecobee3 came out within a week or a couple days prior to that. And Mike, I hadn't even heard of it yet. I've been watching for thermostats with remote sensors, and Mike pointed it out and sent the link through the chat, and I brought it up. I started getting curious. I think I bought two of them. I have 3 zones in my house. I bought 2 of them in November and December. Didn't even get them installed until February, but I've been kind of expanding the footprint ever since and starting to kind of really rely on the capabilities, and I'm really, really enjoying it so far. So the basic gist with the Ecobee is, it's your typical smart thermostat. It's internet connected. One of the differences between it and the Nest is it requires what's called a C-wire, which is power from your thermostat. Nest kind of sips energy different ways and charges up a battery. But it also has these remote sensors, which really kind of are the key feature that makes it different. So with the remote sensors, I can say for a particular time of day, I want sensors 1, 2, and 3 in the main part of the house to be live and feeding the thermostat, and it'll do some type of averaging. Maybe at night, I don't want 1, 2, and 3 used. I want to use the 4th sensor, which is in my bedroom, because that's the only place we are from 10 o'clock until 6 a.m. And you can essentially, for each thermostat and for each time of day that you have a setting, a temperature setting set for, you can customize it that way and essentially create your own mini zones and make them variable depending on time of day. And what I think is really neat, and kind of, I'm all about the money saving. The comfort's okay, but when we leave the house, Nest, I guess, lauds itself as the learning thermostat. It needs to learn your routine and sets up a schedule for you. This is still more of a typical thermostat that you can program on, using the computer or the phone. You set the times of day that you expect you'll be home or not home, but my family is off to school different days of the week and different times of day, and my wife is working at home, but sometimes she's out with the kids. So the sensors actually look and see, has there been motion recently? And if there hasn't been motion, it will drop the settings back to whatever you allow it to do. It won't set it down to, or up to 105 degrees in the summer or down to 50 in the winter. But if you say a plus or minus 5 degree variance, it'll go to that less expensive setting until you come home. And the first time it sees you walk by one of the sensors, I happen to have mine right at my light switches. So every room we go in and out of, we're triggering it as we move around. And then it'll say, oh, they're home, so I'm going to resume. That's called their smart home and smart away. So rather than learning a schedule, most people don't have really good schedules these days. It follows you essentially. And I guess the last kind of key main feature is it actually has a setting called Follow Me. So let's say in a particular time of day you have 4 sensors live feeding the system, but you're only in 2 of those rooms. It'll actually say, of those 4 sensors, these 2 are more important. They give a higher weighting to the comfort settings in those rooms, because I'm in my office working after hours that the kids are in bed. My wife's in the TV room, but the kitchen and the dining room don't really need to kind of be precisely where you had them set. So it'll just weight those 2 sensors more than the others, even though the others are also live and potentially feeding it. So it's really been a good investment, I think. I've actually been watching my energy bill, and it has been lower than we're different owners than this time. Kind of year over year, it's a different owner in the house from last year, but I have her old utility bills, and I can kind of see what things were. And then I guess
John, cost-wise, let me ask you just real quick. So cost-wise, I'm seeing on the site about $230 for the unit with a sensor, and then you have to purchase additional sensors.
That's correct. So
and
yeah,
how much are those extra sensors?
I think the pair is $80, and if you buy them with the thermostat, you can get an extra 15 off as a pair. I actually both of the thermostats I bought for 2 of my 3 zones, I bought in it was kind of a Black Friday and post Black Friday deal where they actually threw in a free pair of remote sensors. So for at the time the price was $250, and I got the thermostat, the sensor that came with it, and the 2 additional sensors for the full $250. So I thought that was really a good deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same price as the Nest, right? So for the
Basically,
price
yeah.
of one Nest, you're getting the thermostat plus 3 sensors. What about so in my house, we're a 1-zone house. do I need a sensor in every room? I mean, how does that benefit me to have that if I'm a one zoner?
Well, for me, I actually had a setup back in Massachusetts before we lived in the Boston area, and before we moved out to California. We had twins 4 years ago this week. My twins turned 4 next weekend, and their bedroom was directly on top of the garage, and the garage was not heated, and their room within their zone was much cooler than the other rooms in the upstairs of the house. It was something that actually concerned us a lot back then because they were just babies, and so I actually had installed it was almost a professional system that I actually had to run a wire up through the attic over to their room to have a remote sensor in there. And I did something similar, whereas these sensors are now all wireless. So obviously, if you have hot rooms and cold rooms, even in my house right now, in our family room in the late part of the day, it's west facing, it gets boiling in there. It's a big, I don't know, 8-foot wide and 10-foot high window. So at that particular time, from like 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., I'll actually kind of adjust the settings of which sensors are included so that we can make sure the house stays cool enough in that situation. So if you have hot zones and cold zones, even in hot rooms and cold rooms within your one zone, you can certainly use the sensors to customize what you're looking to receive. And it also focuses the right comfort level. If you want it to be 74, using that follow me feature, it's going to be 74 where you happen to be sitting, not where the thermostat happens to be. I was just visiting with a friend of mine who we talk about these things a lot. He actually decided to buy one of these. His thermostat's in the middle of a hallway at the top of a stairwell, and the heat comes up from downstairs, so therefore the upstairs heat never really turns on. But if the doors are closed at night, in particular for the kids, those rooms aren't getting any heat. So in his case, we turned off his thermostat, the actual device on the wall, as a sensor, because it's also its own sensor. So we turned it off and said, you know what, we're going to put a sensor in each of the 3 bedrooms, and those are what drive the on or off settings for the upstairs zone in his house. So those are kind of 2 situations where having the remote sensors can allow you to drive heat where there wasn't heat before because of bad placement of where these things get put.
Mike, you looked like you wanted to jump in there. No?
I did, and then we know. He covered it. It was good.
Sounds good. So it's got some more flexibility, right, when we compare it to the Nest, and that's the key in some of this is that, it's interesting, their slogan on their site is for homes with more than one room. Yeah. Which is right. It's kind of poking fun at the Nest thermostat. And really, the traditional thermostat is still a one-room thermostat in a lot of cases, and so it is. Ours is in the hallway up there, and we've got some other issues in the house with we kind of compensate with those with fans, and that seems at least in the summer that seems to work out okay for us. In the winter we do okay from that regard, but. So going back then to the features, you said it's got with Nest it's kind of learning. With Ecobee, walk us through. So you kind of alluded to it, but walk us through as you were starting to set this up. What kind of setup did it take? Now, did you install this yourself, or did you have a contractor come in?
Did.
And you did it yourself. So you can do it yourself. Would you recommend? I mean, is it an average guy thing, or is it kind of
No, honestly, I have my background's in electrical engineering, but I don't think that qualified me to do this. I'm not afraid to go down and turn off the fuse of the circuit breaker and open up the heating unit. And the reality is, I think that it seems the biggest complication with this device potentially is if you have a home that has a 4-wire instead of a 5-wire system, assuming you have heat and air conditioning. And they actually have an add-on kit that lets you convert from the 4-wire to the 5-wire. So even that, I think, is an average guy thing. You basically have to open up your furnace and make sure that all 5 wires are connected, assuming you have all 5. If it's just 4, you put this little converter kit in between, and then essentially take off the old thermostat up at the wall and connect the right colors. And they have various wiring diagrams on the website and those types of things. So. I think the stat they quote is approximately at maybe 50% do self-install and 50% have a pro do it. The biggest thing is obviously you don't want to open up your furnace without making sure that everything's shut down properly.
Okay, so maybe a little more than the average guy, so to speak, but as someone who's got some electrical who's maybe done that before, who's comfortable with the fuse box and maybe running some wires or doing some things, they'd be okay to do a self-install.
Yeah, and I'd say like most things we get involved with, you probably have, if you can't do it yourself, you probably have a friend who probably could help you with it.
Okay. Well, Becky in our chat room, and by the way, Becky came over from a Periscope conversation we're having. So Becky, welcome. Glad to have you in here. It's great to have some gals in the chat room for a change. Becky has said she's been looking at this Ecobee, and which can get really confusing with the Echo mic.
Yeah.
You know, right?
I'm calling this one Ecobee just because I think it's like eco-friendly.
Oh, it is Eco. I've been saying Echo, but it is Eco. My bad.
Yeah, that's all right.
My bad. You should have corrected. You should have jumped in and went, Jim, don't be an idiot. It's not an
Well,
Echo.
I didn't know if I had it wrong or if you had it wrong, and then
you got dude, you're the co-host. You got to protect me on this stuff.
I'm sorry. I'm still learning, taking the ropes.
What am I going to do with it? No, just kidding. So Ecobee. Maybe not the average guy install, but most folks can do that and get it done. John, talk a little bit about your setup then. Once you've got it in the wall and you're doing some other stuff, how long? I mean, you got to do a little training or a little telling or a little programming. So what did that look like?
I've pretty much left. I've left the main three comforts. They call them comfort settings. So in their case, they have home, away, and sleep. You can create additional settings. So you might create one called early morning or early evening if you really want to kind of change your preferences. But in general, for the most part, my wife and I like it to be a certain temperature when we're home. So the home setting, you have a 7-day schedule. You go to Sunday and set, for heat, I want it to come on when it's below 68, and for air conditioning, I want it to come on when it's above 85 or above 78, 82. And you do that each of the days of the week. So some people who do have a work schedule where both adults and all the kids are out of the house from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays, you can set that up. You can have it different for the weekends. It's essentially a 7-day thing, and it's all done. Even in the old days, the 7-day programmable thermostats, you're sitting there at the wall and notching things up and notching things down and incrementing to the next day. This is all done on the computer. So once it connects to your Wi-Fi, and by the way, it does connect to Wi-Fi for its connection to the internet. And then you log into your account, and you can do everything on your phone, on your tablet, through the website. Program those things, and then similarly for each of those settings, for home, away, and sleep, you say, all right, for each of my thermostats, what sensors do I want included in the zone? So like I mentioned before, if you happen to have a top of the stair getting heat from downstairs thermostat location, you turn that off from your home, away, and bedtime. And for sleep, you just turn on the ones in the bedroom and forget about the rest of the house. I mean, it may or may not be the same temperature as you want it to be, but the bedrooms most certainly will be.
So is there if then that support as well beyond the traditional programming?
Well, there is. So all of the traditional programming is set, and that's where you set these comfort settings. But it also does have if then that integration, and I'm actually using that along with my alarm system. So for example, I mentioned that it has smart home and smart away. So when we leave the house, if we're going out on a day trip to go down to San Jose, Jim, and go to a Sharks game, 2 hours later, somewhere around 1.5 to 2 hours later, all those sensors are going to say, we haven't seen anybody in a while, it's time to move the settings back. I said, that's not actually as efficient as I'd like it to be. I'd love for it to know the moment I walk out the door to turn it back to the away settings from home without me actually having to do anything, right? I don't have to walk up to the thermostat and say, I'm checking out now. So I said, you know what? I have a home alarm system, which is another topic we can cover maybe briefly today. The moment on my little key fob, the moment I hit the fact that I'm putting the alarm system into away mode, that means no one's in the house. If there is someone in the house, it's going to be setting off the alarm. They're going to be calling me. So I have if then that set up so that when I click my away, my alarm system, and it's a little bit funky the way it has to happen, but the alarm system sends an email to my Gmail account. And if then that is watching a particular folder in my Gmail account, and I have a little routing set up, when it sees a new email pop into there, it says, you know what, John's gone. So I'm going to go right over to the away mode immediately, rather than 2 hours later, an hour and a half later, when the smart home or smart away kicks in. So that's one of the ways I'm using if then that. So you know, it's definitely, first of all, we're not perfect about setting our alarm system. So I still have the backup of the 2-hour window when it'll default over to that setting, but it does, and it also does allow. And I haven't used these things for if then that, but it does have geolocation. It does have, you know, integration with any of the things if then that will do. Like theoretically, I could have, you know, when it goes into home mode, I could have it turn on my Hue lighting. I'm not doing those kind of things myself right now, but that is one thing I'm doing with it.
Very nice.
Do you think you will as you move forward? Is that stuff that you're just kind of holding back? Because like, I mean, you can spend hours, right, on this stuff, and you're a busy guy. So will you use it, or do you think, I just don't need it?
In general, I'm trying to do things that my wife will see as valuable, either for convenience, comfort, safety, or cost. I don't see that she would see when it goes from away to home mode, having a light turn on. She would just think that would be kind of something I'm doing just to have fun, to be honest. Now, you know, that said, you know, I think I talked about this last time. The last, you know, November when I was on, all I really had at the time were some Hue lights. I had done a little bit of Insteon out in the front of my house with the porch lights. So every night at 8 o'clock, at sunset, because it's time to sunset, I have my Hue light in my family room come on, and I have it go off at 11 o'clock. Now, previously, when we bought that lamp, I had it stay on until 5 in the morning because we had a dog who was super sensitive and getting anxious. She's since passed, but that Hue light we now have come on at dusk and go off at 11. That's kind of our little trigger. It's time to go to bed, guys, for my wife and I. And so I'm using that automation again for convenience and for safety for walking around. So you know, those are kind of the 4 things I'm looking at: is convenience, comfort, safety, and cost for projects I'm looking to do.
Yeah, no, very cool. And an announcement this week, or was it last week, Mike? This year, better at this. Homekit. You talked about on your show. So Open Mic Night. MNpodcast.com if you want to listen to Mike's Apple-based podcast. HomeKit, what is that? So how is this going to play in, Mike? What have you seen on this? I know you guys talked quite a bit about it on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more come WWDC next week. I think we'll start to see the ins and outs of how things are going, but pretty much all they've said so far is that the first round of HomeKit ready devices the list is kind of out there. And so we saw some power switches. We saw the Ecobee. The Ecobee was kind of the main one we focused on. That's all I saw, but since then there was someone else talking on Twitter about it. I haven't read up on what they're thinking now, but WWDC I think we'll learn more. Now the rumor a while back was that the Apple TV is going to be the hub of HomeKit, and what HomeKit is going to be is kind of like a central, almost like a backbone for all of your home connected devices. So all of your lights, your thermostat, all of those smart things in your home are going to be able to connect into this HomeKit, and it's going to kind of be this one place you can go to control all of those things. And so I think we'll learn more next week. But John, was there anything else that you had seen on that front that maybe I missed?
Obviously, I saw the news. I am a zero Apple product guy. No offense to anyone, but I'm Windows, Android, previously Palm, dedicated fanboy. So I'm actually happy. I'm happy to see the Ecobee system expanding, especially for the people who are in the Apple environment. I'm actually part of an Ecobee. I don't know what to call it, like a core customer group where we provide advice and feedback and go through challenges to earn points and get certain other benefits through the company and with the products. So they had kind of given a heads up that was coming, and like I said, I'm excited about it, but that's not relevant for me.
Gotcha.
So it is going to be supported in HomeKit, right? We know that for sure.
Yeah, right. And actually, a Nest is not going to be supported, at least right away. So if you are going for this, Ecobee is going to be the one device you're going to use if you want HomeKit to be your setup.
Well, and of course it's not, right? Because Nest is a Google product.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And Mike, the one thing to point out though, as word of caution for those who are thinking about this, especially if you're an Apple, is the first generation Ecobee, the one I have, does not have the appropriate radios in it to be HomeKit enabled. So they're essentially they're eliminating that line and launching a new line that will have the same benefits if you're not an Apple person, and will have the benefit of being in HomeKit if you are. And they announced for those of us who are owners currently to sit tight for a couple days, and that they would be announcing a plan for handling those of us who are early adopters is from the Ecobee perspective. I imagine we'll have some type of trade-in program or trade-up program of some type, but they haven't announced the details yet. There definitely were some people on the bulletin boards within the Ecobee website for the early adopter, the group that I'm a member of, who were a little upset about this, and it seems like they've already kind of have a plan in place. They just haven't shared it yet.
Well, it's good to see they're taking care of you, though, and doing something at least for you early adopters. So
yeah,
it's good to see.
And they're really, they're out there every day trying to get feedback and insights, and they have like little challenges where one of them I had to do with my wife. What are your what are your settings I would put on the thermostat for cool and heat versus what she would put? Like it's they're really looking to get insights into their customers, and I haven't had to deal with their customer service per se, but everything I've heard about those who have say it's top notch. So.
Well, and the HomeKit too is something, it's not even proven. It's kind of a weird concept. I don't even know if it's honestly something that people will even focus on or feel the need to upgrade to. For me, now that Jim's ordered and played with Alexa, the Echo, and now that I have one on the way, I'm thinking that's way more of an intriguing ecosystem to be in besides HomeKit. I like being able to just talk and have something hear me. Whereas if I'm on HomeKit, do I have to wake up Siri? Do I have to open up my computer? How do I even activate it? Which, like I said, I'm sure they have that. They've thought of it, and we'll hear more at WWDC. But so it might not even be a big problem. It might not be even something you'd be interested in. Obviously, you're not because you're not an Apple person. Yeah. But even the everyday, we have other options besides HomeKit. So it's not a make it or break it deal at all.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like HomeKit's going to be a big investment, right? We're talking an Apple TV, right? To get in on this.
Supposedly, that's the rumor. Yeah, and it's going to be a new Apple TV, so you'll get a little bit more for your money because they brought down the current Apple TV to $69, and it was originally $100. And so they're going to be coming out with probably a new Apple TV. It's going to have some higher functionality, and that'll be it. That'll be your hub. Again, that's all rumored. You might be able to run it off some other devices, but yeah, not a big investment at all. $100, which is cheaper than the Echo, but also you don't get all the cool features of the Echo.
Well, I paid $100 for my Echo, but
that's right. Yeah.
Did you end up paying $150?
I paid $150. Yeah, that's the price right now for Prime members. So
yeah. No, John, have you looked at the Echo since I screwed up the name for the first 10 minutes of the podcast? Have you looked at the Amazon Echo at all and considered it?
I'm definitely interested. I haven't done anything yet. I am an Amazon Prime member. I don't know if that matters anymore or not.
It still does. You still get $100 off. Okay. So it's $250 if you aren't Prime and $150 if you are.
If it got to the point where we can control our Hue, if I could control my Insteon lights with it, potentially some music integration. The one thing I understand, I think, is it doesn't have a speaker output, right? Or it doesn't have an output to, say, an audio system. So if I could have an output that would go through my stereo speakers rather than just kind of whatever little speaker it has integrated, I could see a situation where we would get that, and my wife would, say, play Bruce Springsteen, and it comes on in the living room, and the living room speakers start playing, Bruce's, whatever channel, or
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish it had come with just one connector, like an out.
Yeah.
That we could have run some things, out of RCA or even just a standard out from a headphone jack, from a 3.5 or whatever that millimeter jack cable is. It would be nice to have that. I've really enjoyed it. It would be great. I mean, I like controlling the music and the sound, the volume, all voice commands. I think the Echo is doing it better than anybody else, but not to get derailed on that standpoint. One more time for me, you talked about this follow me feature that's available in it. And is it literally following you, or is it just following the movement in the home?
No, it's following movement in the home.
Okay.
So like I said, I mean, by default, you say at this time of day for heat and cold, I want these mini zones on. I call them almost zones within a zone, right? You have a one-zone house. It's always going to kick out heat to all the registers throughout the house. But its control, whether it kicks itself on or not, is driven by the temperature in certain locations. So you might have all 4 of them enrolled, but if only 2 of them are active and have people in there, it's only going to average those 2. And they have some proprietary methodology. It's not like it's doing true averaging. I know there's some, the degree of activity like gives a weighting to a particular room, and then that weighting degrades over time if it doesn't see somebody, and then finally when it sees nobody for this 1.5 to 2 hour window, that's when it kicks itself off and says they're definitely away. So that's the follow me. It's just like
Okay.
if you have four sensors and only 2 of them are showing people recently, it's going to say I'm going to take the temperature in those 2 rooms and say, do I need heat or cold or nothing?
Right. I think I get it now, the one zone, in the sense. So I still could. So if I've got a zone where it's always cold all the time, it could be pumping a lot of heat to the rest of the house just to
Yes.
get my zone temperature up. So you run a little risk there, right, in that zone of if you're in there for quite a while, you might burn quite a bit or whatever, right? You might spend a lot of energy to kind of keep that area
Yes.
heated for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, the whole idea is comfort, right? So it wants you to be comfortable where you are, and if you're in that cold zone and your wife's in a normal zone, so yeah, it might get a little warmer for her, and it won't get exactly as warm as you have it set, but it'll average the 2.
And that would be great to be able to have it control some baffles or some damp.
Yeah, that's kind of the perfect solution, right?
Yeah.
Or you know, literally turn on and turn off certain ducts. You know, now my understanding is that messes with air pressure within the system and the fans and creates extra, you know, burns out fan motors if you do things like that. But that's kind of the next generation system, right? You literally have control of every single area of your house, whether heat's being pushed there or not. Whereas this doesn't do that. It's just kind of more about the comfort where you are.
No, that's very cool. This is the first time I've really dug into this. I mean, we talked about it a while back. I have kind of let the thermostat go. We are moving in the next year or 2, and I've kind of opted out of most of home automation because I know we're going to change houses. Yep. So I'm kind of just watching from behind the scenes. Mike, you mentioned when we were talking about the Echo, you're now like, hey, maybe I'll try some Hue lights with it, right? You're having that conversation. John, you've installed some lights from your security system as well. It sounds like you had said, let's talk a little bit about your security system. What do you want to bring in on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those things when we talked about it just 6 months ago. I think I said, you know, I don't need a security system. The monitoring fees and the contracts and all the wires to sensors and things like that weren't that attractive for the effort. We actually had the woman who moved out of the house left her system in place, and we kind of had it armed locally, but not to the monitored service. And then in February, we found out that literally for months, mail had been being stolen from our mailbox outside. The police showed up at our door at 10 o'clock one night saying they had arrested somebody who had, you know, bags and bags of mail in his trunk from the neighborhood. And in my case, my mailbox is probably 150 yards from my front door. I can't even see it. I got to walk, you know, 3 minutes to get down to the end of the driveway or end of the street, really. So my wife got a little sensitive about this. I travel for work occasionally, and she's like, you know, I kind of wouldn't mind getting an alarm system that was connected. And so I looked into and installed from a company called Simplisafe. I don't remember where I saw it advertised, but I did want to find something that didn't necessarily have a long-term contract, that could be a self-install. One of the pluses about this particular system is it's entirely wireless. From the base station, it has like a 4G radio that connects back to the home office in New Jersey that monitors for alarms. And then all of the sensors themselves are wireless. So there's no more, you know, connecting anything. All the door sensors, all the motion sensors. It does have you know, water leak sensors that I can put down by my hot water heater at the base to see if that would ever be leaking. So I did the whole thing self-install. I am paying for the monitoring, which gives you kind of phone access to arm or disarm. I mentioned the key fobs. I mean, in the old days, you had to press the button and get out the door before the alarm system went off. In this case, we could be sitting in our garage backing out with the car, and I could just click the button on the key fob to arm it. And then, as I said, like an additional bonus was it doesn't directly integrate with if this and that, but through its Gmail notification system or email notification system, I'm able to use it that way as well. So, you know, that was one component. It doesn't actually integrate with the lights, which is I think where you were going, but I did do some additional Insteon work since we last got together, and I had kind of 2 sets of lights on the outside of my house, which should have worked together and didn't. So I put Insteon switches in both and linked them up, and anyone who's done Insteon work knows you can kind of do whatever you want with that system. It's actually fairly easy as well, as long as you don't electrocute yourself, which I mentioned earlier. Just shut down those circuits. But now I had essentially 2 sets of lights, which were on 2 separate switches that now I could control each of them from each other. So I was able to put a sensor on the outside of my garage, so when my wife does pull down the driveway, those lights kick on. They stay on for 3 minutes anytime anyone comes in the area. And then same thing, if I want to crank them on from bedside at night, if the dog's barking or something like that, I can open my phone, hit the InStown app, and turn on lights around the house. Again, safety and convenience certainly are a factor there, as opposed to just the novelty of being able to do it. So.
No, very cool, Mike. As you look at your setup, you're looking at lights from a Echo standpoint, right? The Echo can turn on and off some Philips lights that's there, and I think they'll probably add more to that as they go along, and they'll sell those to you conveniently through the Echo as well. Right? Can I order you more lights, Mr. Collison? What's your use case? I mean, how would you really like to see them used?
Yeah, so I'm grabbing the Philips Hue Lux lights, which they don't go in multiple colors. It's just white. Those actually aren't they're not too expensive. They're only about $20 once you get the hub and everything like that. So I'm gonna get a few of those for our living room and dining room, and then I'm gonna get the Wemo switch for my studio light, so I can just ask Alexa to turn on and off my light right here that I have for when I do my recordings. And so I'm going to do it for that. Mainly for us, it's just kind of a convenience thing. Honestly, we live in an apartment. Everything's, just a few feet away, so you could get up and walk and turn them off. But just kind of getting into the whole atmosphere of having all of that automated. Also for when we're away on trips, just being able to tell if they're on and off or turning them on. And also for our dog. Our dog likes to have the lights on, at least I think he does. And so I'm always the one that likes to leave the light on for him, but sometimes we forget. So being able to turn it on for him when we're gone during the day, or if it gets dark out and we're staying out a little bit later. Stuff like that, just a mere convenience thing for us. And then being able to do it obviously from bed. We can have the lights on until we go to bed and then flip them off by just asking Alexa to do it for us.
So I've heard two stories of dogs, justifying home automation, to be able, and it would make it easier, right? Sometimes they got to get up. In your case, John, your dog needed that light to kind of feel comfortable, and that's pretty cool to be able to do that and do it efficiently. And our lighting is getting so much better with that, being able to leave a light on a little bit longer and have it not burn. I mean, the days of incandescence hopefully are numbered and we won't see any more of those. Most of the lights in your house, when you think about your lights, how many of them are on some kind of smart grid that you can control, and how many are just a flick of a switch? Just a rough estimate.
For me, it's literally, I think, 3 Hue bulbs that I have probably among 50 or 60 light bulbs in the house.
Pretty small.
Very few. The one project I do have in the hopper is to, because we also leave hallway lights on for our kids, and they're on dimmers. So first of all, they're incandescent, but they are on dimmers, and when we leave them on at night, they're on the lowest setting. One of my next projects is to put in a couple of additional InStown switches with motion sensors to say those lights only pop on when someone pops out of their bedroom. And I'm sure it's low dollars, actually, to be honest. I'm sure it's low dollars when you're leaving them on, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at that lowest kind of slider setting on the dimmer. But for me, it's more about the principle that they can be 100% off, because 99% of the time it's not needed, but the last thing we need is a kid falling down the stairs because they don't feel well and they're coming to see us in the middle of the night. So eventually I'll go there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the grouping feature as well. So if you do have multiple of these, you can go in there and group them and say, hey, these 3 are the bedroom, these 3 are the living room, the kitchen. And then when you talk to Alexa, when you ask her, you can just say, turn on the bedroom lights. And she'll turn on all of them that you have grouped right there, which is kind of a nice little feature. I didn't know if Alexa was going to group or work with that. I knew that Philips had that as an option, but it's nice that these home automation things like Alexa are now recognizing that and knowing that that's what we want. We don't just want one light on, we want all of the lights in that room. To be turned on. So
I gotta say, Mike, the one thing about the Philips Hue, and I do like the system. I bought one of those starter kits with the 3 colored bulbs and the home hub. And the one thing that I don't mind it, but really bothers my wife, is that the light itself, and these are all screwed into tabletop lamps. The light switch on the lamp always has to stay in the on position, right? Because it always needs power. But we don't have a wall switch that she can turn that off. Now I know Philips makes them. They make button switches that will actually turn those on and off. If we had an Alexa, maybe she might be more comfortable saying, Alexa, turn off the family room light. but she doesn't necessarily like getting out her phone, finding that shortcut, like literally like an Android shortcut that I put on her home screen. Lights on, lights off. She's less inclined to want to do that. It's a little bit frustrating.
So you're tied to that app, then there's really no way around that unless you have one of the buttons or something like that.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And
makes sense.
Yeah. So, but if there was an Alexa in that same room and she got up and we're done, it's not quite 11 o'clock, so it's not turning itself off like I have it programmed to do. It's 10:45, and we could just walk out of the room and say, Alexa, light off. That would probably be ideal. It would take a little time to get her there, especially, but certainly better than breaking out the phone.
Yeah, there is a disadvantage. I think we're tying everything to the phones, and there is a disadvantage because I know when I come home, when I'm at work, I have my phone on me all the time. Super convenient to be able to pull that thing out. It's always with me, right? When I come home, I untether myself a little bit from the phone. Now, not on purpose. I just leave it laying. I'm just, I'm comfortable with it. I'll set it on the kitchen table, or it'll be in the kitchen, and I'll come downstairs. I'm not as keen to having it on me, and so that is a little less convenient. I think sometimes it's like, oh, it's kind of like two-factor authentication, right? I've tied all these. Now a lot of my accounts have two-factor, and by the way, the second factor comes to my phone. Well, if it's in another room, I'm kind of screwed. I got to go up and get it.
Yeah.
Now that's not a big deal, right? I mean, I can just get up and get it done. I'm sounding pretty lazy here, but it is one of those inconveniences when we think we tie everything to the phone. Where it gets a little wonky on us. I have been surprised at the adoption rate my daughter has taken to the Echo. And in the other day, and she's just, she is shouting timer commands at it, and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, she's totally comfortable. She was just talking to it like she was making tea. They love to set a 2-minute timer. She's just like, Alexa, timer, 2 minutes, boom, it's done. It's doing its thing. It beeps. She pulls it off. They have gotten very comfortable with that workflow in the kitchen using that. Now, the Echo added Google Calendar integration, so now we can have a shared calendar that we put things on. And to do that this morning, I said, hey, Alexa, play for me my flash report, and it goes to TuneIn Radio and gets NPR for me. I could set that to anything, and I get that 5-minute flash report from NPR and the news, and then it follows it up with my local weather. And I was like, man, this is getting good. I really like this kind of stuff. I'm gonna look at lights at some point in time. I'm just not to the point right now where I want to do the lights and the thermostat in the same token, because you install that and then you show your house. You don't rip the thermostat out.
Right.
I'm taking the thermostat with me, so I'm kind of holding off on that.
Yeah.
But you could, put in your smart one and then just keep your old one around. It's mainly just a faceplate for most of them. I know you have to run maybe an extra wire, but you could also just put the old one right back on. Yeah. Probably pretty quick once you have it all wired.
I don't know. I think I can wait at this point for me.
Yeah.
John, you mentioned Simplisafe.
Simplisafe?
Simplisafe? Is that how this is?
I guess I say Simplisafe, but yeah.
That's the Dave Ramsey promoted one, right?
Yeah, Dave Ramsey is one of the.
I think that's where I heard about it.
Yeah.
Do you recommend them? Has that been a great experience?
Yeah. I think the key tenets. I know when I was looking at ADT, because it was already ADT installed in the house. I want to say the monitoring for the equivalent level of service was about $40 to $45 a month with a 2-year contract, and the Simplisafe monitoring is $25 a month. So it's not huge, but a couple $100 a year difference. I like the wireless features, and to be honest, one of the things they promote on is for an alarm system perspective, you can take it with you. Literally every component there is wireless, and they're all attached to your walls or your doors with those 3M pull tapes. So you can literally take every sensor with you if you decide to go to a new house, and maybe the person that's moving in doesn't appreciate it, won't use it. Maybe you want to keep the service. Not rebuy all that equipment, because I moved into a house that had all this wired ADT stuff, and I tore it all out. It was antiquated. Some of it wasn't working when someone came in. It was going to be another
Probably 10 years old, right?
It was going to be another. I think it was actually 20 years old because the house is 20 years old.
Yeah.
So that they do promote it that way, that you can take it with you. And I will mention the system that I had in Boston where I installed that thermostat. The people who bought my house thought it was a little complicated, so they actually asked me to replace that system with a typical, I had kept the old ones, just like Mike pointed out. So Jim, not that you want to go do that, but depending on who's buying your house, they may or may not actually want the smart thermostat if you were to put one in.
I'm having a hard enough time just getting some of the basic stuff done. Installing home automation at this point hasn't necessarily been my priority, but I get it. I'm kind of, I think we're in those early stages of maturity with home automation, and we're starting to see, anytime companies start fighting, I think we're in a good spot, right, where it's getting very competitive. People are using more of it. We are, we're in a place where I think it's just going to get more competitive and better. So I think the next 3 years is really a lot of things are going to change. I mean, you've already seen, like, your thermostat's already outdated, right? It's not going to hook into some of the other stuff already, and so that unit's pretty expensive. And so I think for a lot of folks, they're kind of in a holding pattern, at this point, like, well, we'll kind of wait and see. I would be more inclined when I move into a new house to just outfit it at that point in time and say, okay, what's good on the market right now? I don't feel like I wouldn't worry about a door sensor or some of those kinds of things from a security standpoint. At least not where I live right now. I feel very safe in this neighborhood. But I would love some of the lighting automation to, like you said, leave the living room light on until midnight. We're all usually in bed by that point, and then it would just shut itself off. It's in a hard spot to reach, and there's easy ways to do that. It's just at this point in time I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I even was starting to play with using the Raspberry Pi as a motion sensor camera. There's actually some simple software you can load up on a Raspberry Pi, plug it in somewhere, and plug in a USB webcam, and it'll have auto sensing and saving it to a hard drive. And there's just little bits like that once you start piecing them together, they start to become really interesting and a lot of fun. And I think as we move on, people will become more and more interested in it. Things like Alexa makes it easier to use. Like you said with your wife, getting out the phone, kind of a hassle, but if you can just talk to something and it works. So I think it's a combination of all these things coming together that's going to kind of build up the momentum and get more people to start using it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Becky had said in chat she's hooking up the Google Calendar to her Alexa or to her Echo.
Yeah, I saw they got support for that. Have you used that, Jim?
It just came out. No, it hasn't. It came, you have to refresh the app, and then you can set up the Gmail account to it and get that done. So that's very cool. You can do a shared calendar, I think, with it, and so that would you could do that and say, hey, what's going on? Because I've always wanted a family calendar. I don't necessarily need my calendar, my work calendar. That's what my phone is for. But there are things in the family calendar that I think we're going to use it for. So we'll set up. I don't use my Gmail account, so that'll probably become the one we start loading family things to, so that we can say, Alexa, what's today look like? Or, and she'll just read off what's on the calendar.
Is that any sign that we're not going to see Google make their own product like this soon? I was wondering, so when I heard that, I'm like, okay, are they prepping people to be able to use something like that with their calendar? Or are they saying, okay, you know what, we're not even touching the Echo's place. We're not doing that right now. So here, you can use Google Calendar with it, and we'll kind of back off on our hardware end. I was wondering kind of what this is telling us on that. No.
Yeah, it's a good question, John. Do you know? Any thoughts?
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, I'm an Android guy right now. I imagine it would be kind of through the Android ecosystem somehow. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't either. I do know this. It wouldn't have been long before If This Then That supported that. Really, I mean, If This Then That has been really ramping up with Echo stuff, and if you just go out there and look at all the recipes that have been made, people are finding all kinds of ways to use that to connect to the Echo. So
right.
It's pretty cool. I haven't burned a lot of time doing it. I need to, although I don't. I'm really enjoying having it for what it does for us. The stuff that we have is enough at the moment, but there'll be more things coming when we think about that. And then what becomes the center of all our home automation, I think, is still yet to be determined and is in a pretty immature state. I mean, I think our sensors are good. John, you mentioned, right, you have a water sensor in your basement there, or in something around the hot water heater. Have you've done that as well?
Yeah, and that's connected directly to the alarm system. So we have, through that alarm system, we have the door sensors, the motion sensors, the water sensors, and then fire and CO2, or smoke and CO2. Those all would alarm, well, all of them except for the water sensor would alarm to the main control point, and then they'll call the police or fire department. The water sensor just notifies me through the app and through my phone.
Yeah. Well, and that's CO2 and fire. I mean, this is an area that the Nest they've gotten a good handle on, where with their detectors, that's all kind of integrated in with the Nest thermostat. Although since Google has bought them, man, it really seems like things have slowed down over there, which is too bad. It just Mike, to your point, it felt like maybe they were going to move in that home automation direction, and this was the first round of it. I haven't heard much. Have you, Mike?
Yeah, no, that's why that was another reason that I got on this train of not knowing if Google's moving away from home automation or if they kind of have their own idea of where this whole thing needs to go. I kind of have this secret hope that Apple is not going with the Apple TV as their HomeKit hub, and they're going to come out with something like brand new that was on no one's radar. Like for the first time, Apple actually kept their lips shut on something, and they have a rock star device coming our way that can compete with Alexa. It's not going to happen. It's not true. At all. But
it's too bad, because Siri would have been a fairly decent interface for that.
Right. Yeah. If you combine Siri with some of the smoother voice of Alexa, I think you've really got something there.
Alexa's
and with how
got a
connected
good
Siri
voice.
is, she does.
Alexa
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the
voice.
speaker too.
Yeah.
Makes it sound good. Yeah, her voice is a lot better sounding than Siri.
No, it's really good. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, wow, put that thing I've often thought about, and I wonder how long it will be before I can talk to Alexa through my phone. Right? I mean,
right.
Why can't I query her smartness right off my phone? And so
I'm surprised they don't.
No, yeah, I think it's coming. I think Amazon's being pretty smart about this. They are releasing one bit at a time. It seems like every 2 weeks they're in the news cycle. Hey, we've released another thing. Hey, we've released another thing, and they're being super smart about this. I mean, if this had been a Microsoft deal, they would have released it, and then 9 months would have gone by, and we would have heard nothing. And then all of a sudden they would have released a second version that made the first one obsolete. Although that's maybe the old. Let me say that's the old Microsoft. The new Microsoft's getting a lot better. Man, Amazon has been nailing it, and now the reordering. This is another feature in there, where if I've bought it before, the other day I said, reorder my Cliff Bars, and she read it back to me what they were. And you just put the password in, and boom, nope, they're on their way. And that is a product that's like that easy smart button, right, that they talked about. That's a product I order every 20 days. I order a box. There's 12 in them. I use them after my workout. I want to order those when it's convenient. I get to the end of the box. There's one in it. I just want to reorder it. Boom, send it to me. And so that is slick. And I do that on the phone too. Through the Amazon app. Just go in. Find it, reorder it, bam, I'm done.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, John, any other thoughts? Anything we didn't cover in your list here?
No, I mean, I just had 2 comments based on what we were just talking about. I mean, from the Google front, at Google I/O last week, Android did announce 2 kind of home automation related technologies. One is called Brillo. I think that's kind of a miniature version of Android that they would expect Internet of Things companies to put on there as like the operating system, so to speak, and I think a communication protocol called Weave that I guess is supposed to be kind of help with interoperability, and that's related to like the comment I was going to make about HomeKit and hubs. I mean, even in my house right now, so technically I have a security system hub. That's the base station that has the wireless 4G signal. I've got a Insteon hub that's connected to my router. I have a Philips Hue hub connected to my router, and I want to say I have a fourth similar type thing. Well, technically, maybe even the Nest. I mean, the Nest doesn't have its own, not the Nest, but the Ecobee, it doesn't have its own hub, but it's also connecting back through. And I think in a perfect world, these are all you buy one hub and they're all interchangeable and they work with all the radios. I remember when I first started looking into this, I listened to the home automation podcasts that the guys over at I'm just totally blanking on their names right now. TMZ.
Yeah, Home On.
Yep, Home On. Richard Gunther.
Yep.
And I remember getting really excited about a system called the Revolve that actually had all the radios baked in. It had Z-Wave and Zigbee and Insteon and everything you might want. And then I think Nest acquired them and shut it down. So there is no panacea right now of that single device that's not, it doesn't have 50 cables coming out of it to different things and from your router. So I think that's still the imperfect part of things, Jim. Like you said, 3 years from now, maybe that'll all come together and there will be a central single place where you control everything, even if it's different technologies, and where you can have all your devices connected through one central point. But until then, we're gonna have to, those of us doing what we're doing or what I'm doing have to deal with it.
Yeah, and it's got to be drop dead easy, right? It can't be. This is where the Echo just kills it. It's just drop dead easy. You just talk to it, and it works. And it's not working for everything. There's queries she doesn't know when you ask, and it's not. But it's a lot of them are very good. I think it's way better than Siri and Cortana. To be honest, although Cortana's going to get a facelift and an upgrade with Windows 10, this is going to be interesting. I think we're going to see some new things. They're already in the newest builds of Windows 10, and I just loaded on my Surface today so I could get a look at Cortana. There's some interesting things coming with that, and so Cortana has the advantage of being embedded in Windows 10. With Windows 10 coming as an Internet of Things option as well, all of a sudden there may be devices around the house that can listen to us from anywhere, right? And I think that's the other thing. The limit of the Echo is in one place, and it doesn't have speaker sensors. Like, it's the Nest of, right? I mean, just to what we're talking about.
We need the Ecobee version. We need the one with sensors all around the house.
Right. I almost want to put a speaker in the, there should be one in my bedroom and the bathroom and downstairs and right here at the desk. How cool would that be that if I had a little sensor or a little device that was a little speaker and a little microphone, and I could hear it, back and forth. So trust me, Amazon's coming with that. I know for sure. That'll probably be the next upgrade on it. A couple reminders on the home automation front. If you want to go to our home automation forums, guess what? It's just homeautomationforums.com. If you want to head out there, Dave McCabe has set a really nice forums community with a bunch of guys out there talking about home automation. So if you want to do that. John, you mentioned Home On, and I was on Home On, I don't know, a month or two ago. Richard asked me to come on, which was really nice of him to do that. But you can get that. If you go to theaverageguy.tv, you can hear if you look down in the section where I talk about where I've been interviewed, you can go there. But I will give you an address here. The easiest way to get to that, let's just pop over there here real quick, is the digitalmediazone.com and look for Home On. Richard does a great job. John, do you listen to that podcast?
I do. I started behind, but listen to every single episode. I really enjoy listening to it. He really puts it in terms the average guy can understand. Gets a little geeky sometimes about certain subjects like lighting, but it's always fun to listen to. And I think Richard would even probably recommend there's 3 or 4 other deeper level podcasts probably that are also out there that if you listen to his show you'll hear about. So
yeah, and I like Richard because he'll call it like he sees it. He doesn't paint over anything like oh it's okay. No, he's like, if I don't like it, I don't like it. Yeah. And so that's a great home automation podcast if you're thinking about if you want to get one of those. We touch, if you're new to Home Gadget Geeks, we kind of touch on the very high level top of these enthusiast community that we'll talk about anything. But we won't necessarily. It's for the average guy. So it's for the person who wants to come in, learn enough about it to maybe put it in. We bring experts like John in and Mike here, and say, well, you've done it, John. You're an expert. You've actually installed this thing. I would consider you a pretty good expert on at least getting that installed. But they've got some great podcasts going on over there as well, and I would encourage you to, if you hang out in the Geeks Network community long enough, you're going to hear a lot about home automation. That's just something that's coming up. Guys, we're at the hour mark on this. John, I'll say anything else that we missed in your notes that it would be bad if we let you go and didn't let you talk about it.
No, I think that it's been good to be on, talk about this stuff, and like I said, I couldn't recommend Ecobee3 anymore. So obviously, if anyone has any questions, they can reach me through Jim, or I'm Greenaway Jay in the forums. Home Service Show as well as Home Automation.
Yeah, Mike, anything for you as I kind of bring this in for a landing?
No, I mean I think I want to revisit this again after WWDC because I really do think we'll know a lot more about HomeKit. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but we can pay attention to that. But yeah, no, nothing really on this front. I think we covered it all.
Well, maybe, John, we'll look at getting you on a little quicker the next time if that announcement has some big stuff around this area, and we're going to talk about it. Maybe we'll try and get you a segment or two, because there are some announcements of some things that are coming up, and this area is going to move very, very quickly. I think over the summer, we're going to see a lot of changes to it. It doesn't take long for, as soon as Apple jumps into it and gets it right, and these guys connect to that. Of course, Amazon's in that space and is moving very quickly on it. I think we're going to see some new stuff from Amazon, which is crazy. Google seems to be out. Microsoft seems to be out, on it, and they're not. We're not going to mess with that too much. We'll stick with watches and Windows 10. So it's a great time to be alive. I'm not going to lie. This is awesome. I wish I was a little bit younger. I wish I was your age, Mike, to live in this, because it's like, oh man, it would be great to be in my 20s and just see you're living in a good time, man. Trust me, you don't even know when we had dial-up modems.
I do. I remember that. Well, and my wife and I were just talking about that the other day. We were going through different scenarios on the drive home, saying, okay, in our lifetime, will there be this? In our lifetime, will there be this? Will we have robots in our bloodstream? Will we have this? And it's crazy to think that, yeah, so I'm 24 years old, so in the next 50, 60, 70 years, just the amount of innovation that's happened in my last 6-7 years that I've been into tech, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like.
Yeah. John, do you have a few minutes to stay around for post show?
Yeah, I'll stick around.
Okay, hang tight. Let me get through the final stuff at the end of the podcast here. If you're a regular to the podcast, you can probably shut it off at this point, because if you're listening live, stay around because you want to hear the post show. Of course, you only hear the post show if you stay around for the live show, and we're live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv. Mike, the Periscope experiment was a huge success. Emma and Becky came over.
Love
from
it.
Periscope, and Becky is here in the chat room, and John had said she's been thinking about this, the Ecobee, and getting it installed, and so, man, what great timing to have her, to pull her over from Periscope, have her on to hear you do this. So pretty cool. It's one of those nights where it all comes together. But a couple reminders as you're on your way out. One, we want to thank you for supporting The Average Guy, the Tech Scholarship Fund that we have out there. Every time you purchase on Amazon, just go out to theaverageguy.tv/Amazon or the theaverageguy.tv/AmazonCA if you're in Canada. And those funds come back in, and we recycle them, hopefully, into some products that folks can use and test and write up on the platform. Or we do upgrades here to the studio to keep the network fresh and moving, and new equipment and those kinds of things. So appreciate you supporting that as well. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, you'd probably be mad at me because I owe you a newsletter for last weekend. I should have written it, but I just got so busy I didn't get it done. I actually have a really special one coming up. Mike, you and I talked about, I had a coworker pass away a couple weeks ago, and I have some thoughts around that. I'm going to write it up. You'd be like, well, Jim, why would you put that in your podcasting newsletter, right? Well, because he was a fellow podcaster. And so I think it relates to what we do on the network here. And while those podcasts are not about this network, I've just got some thoughts I want to share with you. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, head out to theaverageguy.tv/newsletter. All the back episodes or all the back newsletters are there. There's a little button that says sign up. Just give me your email address. I won't spam you. I barely send you email once a month like I tell you I'm going to do. Life is busy, but we got a special one coming up, so you might want to get signed up for that. As well. I'll remind you we're doing the home server show, Surface Geeks AverageGuy.tv meetup in Indianapolis coming up here on September 12th. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, there will be a link to it in the show notes. Head out to those at theaverageguy.tv, and we'll be in Indianapolis. $25 get you in all Saturday. Get you some good food, some great tech. Mike's coming with me. Is that still going to work, Mike? Are you still planning the road trip?
Oh yeah, back-to-back weekends being out of town. It's gonna be awesome.
John, it's
Warriors.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. John, a little far for you to come from San Francisco out to Indianapolis. So although your flight
someday, it's on the list for someday. Not in the time budget nor money budget at the moment.
Yeah. So well, it's one of those things. You'd actually get there quicker from San Francisco to Indianapolis than it will take Mike and I to drive from Omaha to Indianapolis, and so we'd love to have you come out. Anybody can come in the United States, fly overseas if you want. Indianapolis, September 12th, great time that we have there. The link for the sign up and all that stuff, and I think we've already got 10 or 15, and we're going to cap it somewhere in the 30s. So if you're going to join us, get out there and get that done soon. Many of you have been. I mentioned, if you saw in the video, yeah, the new Mackie mixer is up and running, and actually, I really like it. There's some features in it that I didn't get with the Alesis Multimix 8, like this USB. There's a little switch on here that says USB pass-through, and I can push that, and all the sounds from my computer, which I didn't know I had it on when we were doing Cyber Frontiers the other night, will make it into the podcast, which makes it's almost like a mix minus. It's like a one-button push mix minus type deal where what I'm playing you guys can hear as well. So I could be streaming music into the podcast, which, Mike, we might actually try.
The Multimix 8 does have that, though, by the way.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Way to burst my bubble, man.
Well, you said to correct you earlier when I didn't correct you last time, so I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Do I correct him? Do I not?
Twice.
I'm sorry.
One more and you're out.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. You're good. But I just discovered that on the Mackie. I'm really liking the sliders as opposed to the knobs, and it's been a good little box. The Multimix 8 is gone. I totally destroyed it with a whole glass of water. So don't pour water on your mixing gear. And
are we gonna do the Office Space thing where we take it out to a field and just totally crush it?
Just beat the living daylights out of it as we celebrate its death. And,
right.
And so, anyways, we appreciate you, the listener, and you guys coming out tonight, listening. Again, a reminder: if you want to join us live Thursday nights, almost everyone except July. I'll take the first week of July off, but just about every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out at the Average Guy.TV live. Mike and I have a bunch of great guests, just like John, scheduled for you guys throughout the course of the summer. And so you're going to want to be out here. And if you missed last week, we had Clamor, and holy cow, that was popular. Mike, I got all kinds of stuff on that. So if you haven't gone back, listen to Clamor. And I heard that was your pick.
Yeah, it was. I love it.
Yeah. So go back and listen to those as well. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody.